personal development is something easier said than done. And if the aim is fundamental change, self-transcendence, then this is even harder to achieve. What's often ignored is what gets in the way, what frustrates change. Oneness experiences demonstrate a capacity for a higher consciousness. There's a greater love for all, together with a much better understanding. But these profound insights don't last. They're all too brief. Yes, they're glimpses of our human potential, but nothing more. There's definitely a tremendous potential waiting to be developed, unfolded. It seems to exist in people as something which is buried, neglected, misunderstood or suppressed. So the crucial question is, what frustrates sincere attempts at significant progress or transformation? There are actually 5 things which get in the way, and we're going to go through them one by one. Self-transcendence, or what we call non-selfishness, is radically different to the normal mindset. Non-selfishness has no basis in the usual range of self-orientated behaviour. It's completely different. It amounts to nothing less than a step forward in human evolution. The ubiquitous me-first mentality is associated with an image of separateness. We're a gregarious species, obviously, so there's wanting to fit in. And there might even be a longing for that something more. But the actual minute-by-minute experience of togetherness, unity, is sadly absent. Instead, current human experience is dominated by me against you, us against them. Some might superficially use words like interconnectedness and holistic, but they're actually a long way from knowing, living this very different reality. The shift from selfishness, the normal mindset or starting point, to non-selfishness, self-transcendence, is not a continuum. It's not a straightforward matter of personal growth as commonly assumed. It's more than becoming better, more than improved psychological health. This alone will only produce a change along the spectrum or range of normal behaviour. The basic starting point remains unchallenged. Most individuals interested in deep thinking or change have been fooled by themselves and others. They fail to grasp the magnitude of our human potential. Yes, they might be vaguely thinking along the right lines, at least in some respects, but the scale of what's at stake here is being completely missed, grossly underestimated. There's a distinct difference between the 2 ways of being on offer. They're like oil and water. They don't mix. Me first massively gets in the way. You must get over yourself, of course, but the you is the ultimate stumbling block. So how can you break free from the core problem of self? How can you burst your own bubble? The first thing that's been getting in the way is failing to identify and approach the start line. It's a simpler or more profound choice than is realised. You need to step right back to gain appropriate perspective so you can see the 2 foundational options on offer: selfishness or non-selfishness. And if you get real, really real, this choice is as naked or challenging as they come. The decision to fundamentally change calls for self-honesty, level-headedness, caring, courage, preciseness, and an enormous amount of personal responsibility. There's no messing around. You have to be serious. Approaching the start line is all important. What you decide upon, choose, sets the path. If you screw up or fluff this very first step, you're toast. You're totally stuffed. Get this initial bit incorrect and you'll be heading the wrong way. It's that simple. The massive social conditioning doesn't help. This is what forms your outlook and behaviour during the early years, compounded throughout the decades that follow.
Philip Larkin brilliantly summarised social conditioning in his famous poem. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. I've already mentioned that we're a gregarious species, and so there's the urge to fit in and be accepted. This in itself, if you continue to give in to it and play any or all of those social games, will keep you stuck. You won't be able to properly break out and flourish if you also want to do what everyone else is doing. The subcultures, including those who play at being alternative or spiritual, are no different in real terms from mainstream society. It's the easy option, merely playing at personal development, which we'll look at later in the film, but it achieves nothing. Zilch. So, social conditioning is the second problem which frustrates sincere attempts at change. Whereas there thankfully is some appreciation of this matter, it's still a huge entangled mess of issues that will highly likely get in the way, thwarting your good intentions. Yes, there might be awareness that you have to undo or unlearn this accumulated baggage from the past, but there's insufficient know-how when it comes to actually achieving this process of unshackling. Minimisation certainly doesn't help, and this is just one form of avoidance. Again, there's some recognition that psychological avoidance is unhelpful, but nowhere near enough compared to what is required. When you add up all of the excuses, blaming, trivialisation, intellectualisation, distraction, denial and other means of deflection, it makes the likelihood of a major shift in attitude and approach extremely doubtful. Social conditioning, together with the usual response to emotional pain and disappointment, employing the strategy of avoidance, is everywhere. This produces an acceptance of limitations, encouraging mediocrity, and it's normalised. All of which works against being the best you can be, going for gold, excellence, making a genuine breakthrough nearly impossible. It's worth stressing at this point that fundamental change, self-actualisation, self-transcendence, a higher consciousness, can be realised. But you've got to know what will hinder or prevent this worthy aim and significantly better way of being. Equally as crucial, you have to understand the exact process to follow. Precise know-how is essential. Incomplete knowledge is the third of the problems we're looking at. A little bit of insight just isn't good enough and will inevitably lead you astray. There's no substitute whatsoever for mastery. Ignorance equals clumsiness. We've clearly identified the need for a dual framework approach. Two complementary maps, if you like. Without these, you'll be lost wandering helplessly in the desert. I've already touched on the first of these two maps. You have to become acutely aware of the strategy of avoidance. If you neglect this massive issue of avoidance, you'll get absolutely nowhere. Initially, even if you're smart, you'll almost certainly underestimate the extent of this entrenched hindrance. It's a much bigger problem than you might think, permeating all areas of behaviour. And tied in with avoidance are all of the hang-ups you've amassed from the past. The straitjackets, no-go areas, self-doubts and other obstacles. It's not that you have to work through each of them, which would take forever. But you cannot let the past overly affect you in your endeavours to now move forward. Yet, unfortunately, this is what usually happens. There's commonly misplaced emphasis on the need to be spiritual or peaceful. To be blunt, that's a load of bollocks. Instead, what's actually required is capability and aliveness. This is tangible and sorely needed if we're to make the world a better place. Specifically, we've pinpointed 16 key factors. These are the components, the nuts and bolts if you like, that collectively produce outstanding competence for the benefit of all. We've rigorously tested them for decades under the most demanding of practical situations, and they absolutely work. No doubt.
Individually, each of these 16 key factors offer clear advantages. But when they're all integrated and used together, their combined strength is unleashed, offering so much more. Then they can bring about a genuine paradigm shift. You can think of them as the mechanism for how a higher level of consciousness or a mature psychology actually works. We've detailed all this in a comprehensive series of 42 films under the playlist title Follow the Process on our YouTube channel. So I'm only going to very briefly list these indispensable attributes here. You obviously need to decide upon your meaning and purpose, plus a short list of values or core principles, combined with vision, expectation or a goal for the future. To begin to make this real, you have to grasp opportunity and work hard. There must be curiosity and a hunger for learning, which produces a zest for life. And it's imperative you face reality. You'll need the spirit of an adventurer, and being prepared is also essential. You must never give up, because it's a long way to the top with many obstacles to overcome. Inquiry, asking pertinent and probing questions, is likewise needed as part of the process. As you have to get off yourself, going way beyond me first, the key factor of service before self makes all the difference between normal capability and what we're talking about here. Appropriateness and preferences fit with this, based on the principle of need before want. The need for an anti-hypocrisy test, which has been conveniently missed or overlooked in the past, is best framed as actions speak louder than words. Everything must be linked together, so picture building is yet another must-have component. Perspective and approach is a necessary reminder of your vision and a can-do mentality. Finally, the 16th key factor is scale. Whereas most of the others are easy to grasp, this one's a bit trickier. It's about thinking big, yet also paying attention to detail. This scale factor must be applied to all of the other key factors to maximise their potential, which is stupendous. The fourth reason why significant change stumbles is really simple. Almost everyone massively underestimates how much sustained effort is required. Habits are formed through repeating the same or similar behaviour over and over, and our brains therefore become hardwired. This can be changed. Neuroplasticity is a proven fact, but it takes commitment and a huge amount of hard work to make it happen. You must be conscientious and persistent, persevering beyond the initial burst of enthusiasm. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to slog it out if you're actually going to rewire your brain, replacing one habit with another. If you believe this can be done overnight or in a week or two, you're deluded. It'll take months of continuous effort at the absolute least. If you don't sufficiently apply yourself, you'll get nowhere. Change won't happen. Many never actually realise this because the correct information isn't commonly available. If you somehow do know this, when it starts to get a bit tough, the danger is that you'll quickly fool yourself into believing that it's easier to water everything down, to minimise what the process demands, probably also making silly excuses. You'll get knocked off track and it'll be game over. Whether you're attempting to undo weaknesses and or build strengths to increase capability, your focus has to be single-minded and unrelenting. The key factor of never give up is essential here. It'll be a struggle because you're starting from a position of shortcomings and irresolution. The idea of any fairness doesn't come into the equation. And if you're a beginner, you're a beginner. Tough shit. That's how it is in the real world. So you must keep going, always doing your realistic best at any one moment. Then, with practice, you'll get better and better. As you begin to get a bit psychologically healthier, avoiding less, building up additional strengths, the extent of your accumulated baggage from the past will become even more obvious. You'll therefore likely feel worse than before. This must be expected as you open up your eyes and lower some of the mental barriers that supposedly protect you. It's merely a reflection of just how much has been previously stuffed down, avoided. So, again, you must keep pushing forward. The further you progress, the better it feels and gets. You'll then realise that all the effort is worthwhile. A lack of seriousness is the fifth thing which frustrates personal development. You play at it or dabble, rather than giving it your best shot. This is linked with, but distinctly different from, the problem of understanding how much effort is required to change existing habits. It's much less challenging to approach changing in a casual, dreamer or escapist manner than it is to face harsh reality. Then roll your sleeves up, dig deep and work bloody hard. This alternative of dumbing down takes a lot less effort and therefore it's immediately more alluring. You can bolt on the new, deeper aspirations without the necessity for a thorough rethink. It enables you to superficially fit in with others, fooling one another en masse, safety in numbers. And the blind leading the blind are always on hand to exploit your naivety, of course. There's an endless amount of mumbo-jumbo or woo-woo on offer, plus a mishmash of nice-sounding truisms and traditional beliefs for those who are less gullible. This fills a vacuum in the absence of genuine wisdom and no-nonsense know-how. Plenty of charlatans peddle all kinds of crap. And, astonishingly, loads of people happily lap it up. I suppose they're desperate to find that something more, yet they understand little, with their vulnerabilities exposed. Many get fooled, misled, exploited and worn down. This tendency to play fits in with the pre-existing distraction of self-indulgence. There's a parallel with what's going on behind me. What I'm talking about is just a spiritual version. Cherry picking is common, and because you've fallen for bullshit in the past, choosing to take the course of least resistance, it's easy to swallow it when you begin to think a bit deeper about the meaning and purpose of life. Yet you fail to get anywhere truly meaningful, because what you're fed is crap. As with the first problem of failing to clearly identify and approach the start line, the sad but blunt truth of the matter is you never realistically get going. You've wandered along the wrong way, gone up a cul-de-sac, down a dead-end street. The 5 reasons I've just outlined that get in the way of a fundamental shift to a much better way of being are individually and collectively a pain in the arse. Countless good people have fallen foul as a result of these obstacles blocking change. Better education is the way forwards, which is what we're trying to do here. Predispositions like cognitive bias and confirmation bias don't help with clarity of mind. Humanity is currently a fuzzy fuck-up of limitations, contradictions and hypocrisy. Thankfully, there is human potential, but it's usually buried under a heap of shit. The lack of genuine role models doesn't help either. Examples, guides and world-class coaches are a must, part of what's needed to achieve a breakthrough in the next step forward of our evolutionary journey. We're doing our best to build a small team of individuals who really do know what's what, demonstrating an authentic, better way. It's taken us over 40 years to get to where we are today. If you'd like to join us, please get in touch. There'll be a link in the description box below. So that's it for this film. We've made many other films covering this important subject of personal development and the need for self-transcendence in lots of detail. They're all on our YouTube channel, ready for you to watch, and you can subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of new ones. Don't take the easy path. Be brave and go for it. Approaching the start line is